women are choosing not to identify as feminist? Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one? I am from Britain, and I think it is right that I am paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should be able to make decisions about my own body. I think...
Following on from Emma Watson's speech, I wanted to take a look at the global issue that is gender inequality, but pinpoint it to the radio industry. I know that I myself have faced sexism in the past. I know that many other women around the world in radio are still facing gender inequality today. I took a trip to BBC Suffolk Studios to talk to Georgina Rowe about her experiences and opinions as a female radio presenter.
My name's Georgina Rowe. I'm a freelance broadcaster at BBC Radio Suffolk.
Looking back, do you think getting to where you are today was made more difficult due to you being female, or do you feel you've had just as much opportunity as your male counterparts?
I guess that's a difficult one because I've only approached it always as a female. I'm sure if you spoke to, I was talking to a colleague, Wayne Baven, who does the programme before me, who is very much a white middle-class man, and he feels very discriminated against at the BBC because he thinks there are more opportunities now for women, which I strongly disagree with him on, but that's his own perspective on it. I don't know, it's difficult to say. My background before I went into radio was in newspapers. I was trained as a print journalist, so it's been very much in print and in magazines. And I can honestly say, working even in the dark years of the 80s, I never, in that medium, faced any kind of gender discrimination whatsoever. I do, if I'm being brutally honest, feel it slightly more in radio than other media. I think you do feel slightly at the BBC or in local radio, or radio in general, that women's voices are not voices that are as welcomed, shall we say, as men's. Mm-hmm. Could be a whole bunch of reasons for that. People often quote the fact that local radios mainly listen to a demographic of 50 plus women, and apparently women are not so keen on hearing other women's voices. Whether that's the case or not, I kind of doubt, but I do feel there is a bias against women in radio. Certainly when I was training to be a journalist, radio was nothing I particularly thought about. Now, whether that was consciously because I didn't hear enough women's voices on the radio or not, I don't know. I don't think I've been held back necessarily because of being a woman, but having said that, you only have to scroll through BBC Sounds and look at the ratio of male presenters to women presenters to work out there are an awful lot of men.
Do you remember a specific movement or protest, rally, event in time that made you feel like women finally had a place with men in radio?
I've really noticed the sea change that happened with Carrie Gracie, and I think that really made the BBC, I can't talk about commercial radio, but it made the BBC really kind of look at itself and think, well, this is not good. You know, the BBC cannot portray itself around the world or in itself as being equal if we've got these issues going on at home, which it definitely did. And since then, you know, I love it when you hear this day programme and you've got Martha Carney and, you know, Michelle Hussein on it, and I just love it when, you know, you can go for an hour on the day programme and not hear a man's voice. I know it's probably a bit childish, but for me, I'm just like, yeah, that's fantastic. And I do think that's changing a lot. Recently, you now got changes at Radio 2, so things are changing, but yeah, I think for the last year that you have seen some quite big changes. I think there is still a lot of discrimination for women in the radio. From the Me Too movement, you know, you've got to take your hats off to that, and young people now who are really sort of making changes that we're not particularly that successful at when I was doing it. And it really is hats off to you and to that generation for doing it, because I think that's making some big changes. I mean, it looks ridiculous looking back. Now you've got, I don't know, on Strictly you've got Claudia and what's her name. This was kind of, oh, you can't have two women presenting at TV, but the sky will fall down. And now, of course, you look at it and you think, well, what would be, you know, female Doctor Who? There's nothing odd here. It's completely normal. So I think whether it's the Me Too movement or it's just changes that do seem to have happened a lot quite recently, I think, in the last sort of 1 or 2 years, even though we've been sort of banging the old drum for decades, which is great to see.